U.S. intelligence reports that Russian commanders appear poised to invade Ukraine after receiving orders from Moscow. Now, millions of Ukrainians are now facing growing uncertainty. Charlie D'Agata reports from Kyiv.
In the most elaborate and choreographed show of force yet, Russia held military drills by land, sea, and air, knowing full well it wasn't just President Vladimir Putin watching. Far more worrying is that announcement that tens of thousands of Russian troops in Belarus will remain indefinitely, despite previous pledges to pull them out after joint drills, poised to strike along the border with Ukraine. And it comes amid a dramatic escalation in shelling from Russian-backed separatists on the front lines in eastern Ukraine. Upping the propaganda war, separatist leaders warned of an impending assault from Ukrainian forces, reporting that tens of thousands of civilians have been evacuated to Russia for their own safety, raising fears that Putin might use the pretext of protecting ethnic Russians to justify an invasion. Despite the ominous developments of the past few days, it's still business as usual here in the capital. And although there is a sense of calm here, there's also a growing sense of concern.
Of course, I'm worried about my safety and my family and my children, of course.
Would you leave Kyiv?
Today, no.
I'm afraid. This is our motherland, our people, our children.
In Kyiv, hundreds of women took part in survival and self-defense courses. Ukrainians know their forces are no match to the military might of Russia, yet nobody here wants to believe a full-scale invasion is either imminent or inevitable.
So for more on this, we want to bring in Haley Ott, who's joining me now from Kyiv with the very latest. So, Haley, I want to actually start with what you're seeing on the ground in terms of how people are reacting. We saw in Charlie's piece that there is growing concern, whereas, just a few weeks ago, there didn't seem to be. What are you seeing?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Yes, as Charlie reported, it's concerning to see this uptick in violence in the East, and it's concerning to hear that there might be a military invasion of your country. But consistently, the message that I'm hearing from the people here in Kyiv that I speak to is the same. It's that they're going to continue with life as normal as much as they can until there is an invasion, if there is one. And that's because it's seen as their response to what is already a move by Russia that is damaging the Ukrainian economy. They see this buildup of troops on the Ukrainian border by Russia as an aggressive tactic to damage the Ukrainian economy and to control Ukraine's decision making. And so by continuing with their lives as normal, they see that as a way of fighting back against that tactic. It's also one of the reasons why a lot of the people I speak to say that they want to see Western sanctions imposed now, not if there's a military invasion, because they say that Russia should face repercussions for this thing that it's doing, which is building up troops on the border, putting pressure on Ukraine, damaging the economy, and harming this country and its economic future.
Yesterday was a significant anniversary, if you will, for the Ukrainian people. In 2014, there was an uprising there. They toppled the Russian-backed leader, Viktor Yanukovych. But here they are facing a Russian threat again. It must be absolutely withering for the Ukrainian people. But I wonder if it's also, sort of pulling them together. I mean, what does this mean for them to be facing this threat yet again?
Yeah, yesterday was the anniversary of the most violent day of that Maidan uprising that you mentioned that happened in 2014. And just to refresh your memory, at that time, the then president, Viktor Yanukovych, basically at the last minute decided not to sign an agreement that would have brought Ukraine closer to Europe, closer to the European Union, and instead sort of turned the country back towards Russia. And that was seen by as a betrayal by a lot of people, and they took to the streets. tens of thousands of them encamped out for months, and they were attacked repeatedly by government security forces, and many, many people were killed. And yesterday was the anniversary of one of those deadly days where dozens of people were gunned down here in Kyiv on the streets. You can still see the bullet holes in some places. And movingly, they've put up monuments, these yellow markers in locations where people lost their lives. So as you look over the area around Maidan, you see these yellow markers all around, and it's a real reminder of sort of the loss of life that happened as part of those protests. But people here see that as a victory. They see Yanukovych was ousted. They had new elections. So they saw that Maidan uprising as really a moment when they came together and said that they wanted a future for Ukraine that was democratic and that was turned more towards Europe. So for people now to, on this very significant anniversary, be faced with another threat from Russia, and perhaps a more serious one, I think that it's made people. It's reminded people of the losses that they suffered in 2014. But as you said, it's also reminded people of what they were willing to give up. And it's a lot of the people that I spoke to who also were participated in those protests in 2014 said that they are willing as ever to fight for the Ukraine that they want.
Wow. Haley, thank you very much.